This is the final installment of the marriage series. Today's discussion is kind of a broad spectrum overlook of modern marriage. I can't guarantee we'll touch on any specific problems some of you might be having, but I hope it will give you all some ideas to think about regarding marriage. And for the record, yes, I was married briefly and divorced many years ago. But my true God-intended husband and I have now been married for 12 flippin' awesome years. And as of next week, as a matter of fact. And we've never once had, any kind of a blowout major fight. So that's not so bad, huh? Because, we practice all of the things that I will be sharing with you today. So, most of us understand that God is three parts. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit that make one whole called the Holy Trinity, or even in Old Testament times, Elohim. And it is no coincidence that our human relationship with God, specifically the church, is referred to several times in the Bible as a marriage between God and the church. We are God's bride. And, so to me, it makes perfect sense to understand that a complete marriage is also a trinity. Husband, wife, and God. Three different parts to one beautiful whole. And marriage without God is crippled and incomplete. But with anything in day-to-day life, mere belief in God or having a Christian religion is not enough. Now, a marriage, like life itself, must have a personal connection or relationship with God to enjoy true wholeness. I'm going to assume we're all familiar with the meaning of Genesis, with Adam and Eve and the two becoming one. So we'll move on to the psychological and, sociological aspects of marriage. There are several factors that can make or break a marriage, the most important being communication. Much like our individual relationships with God or even our friends and family, if there's a lack of communication, the relationship will be weak. And ladies, not all communication needs to be done with many words. This is, kind of a no-brainer, and yet so many couples neglect to understand this point, especially you men out there. And, enough said about that for now. A key idea my husband and I have embraced in our marriage is not only good communication, but absolute love and admiration for each other, which ultimately leads to a desire for one spouse to be happier than oneself. Now, there's a shock to our modern self-centered system, wanting our husband or wife to be happier than ourselves. But that is the nature of true godly love and also a major factor in divorce nowadays. Individual self-centeredness, selfishness in a marriage. And, let me ask all of you, do you consider what makes your spouse happy at least as much as your own quest for fulfillment and happiness in life? I was watching the movie Fireproof the other day. A great movie about, Christian concepts and marriage. I highly recommend it. And this concept from the movie struck me. When people are dating, or one person wants to date the other, much time is spent on studying the other person, learning their likes and dislikes, what makes them happy, how they can be won over. So we kind of earn a high school diploma, so to speak, in girlfriend or boyfriendology. But why do people stop their study of their spouses once they are married? Shouldn't married people continue to study their spouse to the point of metaphorically earning a bachelor's, master's, or even a doctorate degree and knowing what makes their spouse happy? Marriage should be a lifelong university of studying and applying what makes your spouse happy, right? Not a university of me, myself, and I. And as an example, I know my husband loves to fish, and he knows I love to play in my garden and ride my motorcycle. And because we both have at least, I'd say master's degrees in what makes the other person happy, we love each other enough to allow plenty of space for each of us to be happy and enjoy our lives, even if we do it separately at times. And, giving each other adequate space is very important. And I know that, of course, this is easier for us because we don't have children. But, for those of you with kids, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Communication is, key, as is compromise. Also, within the course of the, metaphorical university of marriage, is learning each other's love language. There are a few books and various church seminars on the subject, but the idea is, we all express love and understand expressions of love differently. Some different love languages are gift giving, praise and affirmation, or even physical touch. And, I'll give you some more references for studying love languages in the end of today's sermon. And this is important stuff within a marriage as well as, all close relationships in life. So, please do study up on love languages. And, moving on, it seems to me another major factor contributing to divorce is confusion over individual roles in the marriage. We discussed this several weeks ago in the Relation History sermon. But to review, we live in a world where men and women struggle to define our God-intended roles. The women's rights movement has left men kind of confused and even somewhat degraded. And, this gets even more confusing within a Christian marriage when we have a, patriarchal, biased Bible, if you will, to follow. And this is yet another reason why communication within a marriage is more important than ever. Discuss man and woman roles within your marriage with your spouse. Talk about your needs and, and your expectations, your beliefs, and then be willing to compromise. Which leads me to my next point, compromise. Marriage is one giant compromise between two people. In marriage, neither individual can expect to always get their way. That is the selfish, self-centeredness we discussed earlier that is toxic to marriage. There must be compromise. When my husband is gone all weekend fishing, he usually, kind of compromises with me in agreeing to spend the next weekend together. And, it has to work both ways. If I'm off on the motorcycle all weekend, I agree to maybe go fishing with him the next weekend. We compromise in how we spend our money even, our time together and day-to-day household decisions. Which leads me to another brief yet monumentally important point. Money problems are the #1 cause of divorce in America. Be wise with your money. Do not live beyond your means. Avoid credit. Credit cards are evil. And, my husband and I even agreed in our marriage vows to never have a credit card. And, avoid greed and excessive materialism. Again, money problems, #1 cause of divorce. So, all of those electronics and toys will never bring you the happiness that a good marriage will. So don't get sucked into the false American dream. And, finally, there is one thing that people don't seem to understand going into marriage and within the marriage itself. Ever hear someone say, well, he or she just isn't the same person that I married anymore? Sometimes it is a statement of praise, but more often than not, it's an excuse for divorce. Understand this. Marriage is like running a business. It grows and evolves over time and must roll with the changes and constantly strive for improvement if it's going to survive. It is very possible and likely that the person you are married to now is not the same person you married. Life changes us. Circumstances change us. We are all, or should all, be evolving. And, some changes are good in a person and some may not be so good. But a marriage, like a business or company, must deal with changes and adversity and learn from past mistakes if it is going to survive. This involves commitment, communication, and hard work. Oops, did I say that? Hard work? Well, it is, but hopefully mostly enjoyable hard work. And, periodically in the lifetime of a marriage, it is necessary to stop and reevaluate where to go from here, and restructure. Just like a business, especially nowadays. we often kind of hit, dead ends in a marriage when things just aren't working anymore, which is, where couples tend to give up and head for divorce court. No, don't do this. This is when you sit down with the planning committee, i.e. you and your spouse, and, regroup, set new goals, accept a slightly different way of life even, discuss your marriage, discuss what it will look like for the next leg of the journey. And don't be afraid of change. Just kind of roll with the waves and, lose your stubbornness. This is how marriage rocks and rolls. So party on, my love-stricken married ravens. And remember, sex is not to be used as a weapon or a bargaining chip in marriage. And the little things in life absolutely do count. So put the cap back on the toothpaste and put the toilet seat down. We're all in this together, gang. So God bless you. Hopefully you get something out of this, and we'll catch up with you next time.